there was seats up here. Yeah. I see. Hello. Welcome all. My name is CCP Zoetrope, Senior Audio Programmer for EVEOnline, and welcome to this special audio session. Today we'll be celebrating the past and exploring the future of the sound and music of EVEOnline by chatting with those that have been shaping the soundscapes of EVE for your oral consumption over the past 20 years. I want to stress that this is not an open panel, but is more of a moderated discussion. Think of it as a talk show of sorts. I will be your host for this session and have prepared a set of questions for our guests. And as with all good talk shows, there will also be a musical performance at the end. Over its 20-year history, the audio experiences in EVE and its underlying audio systems have grown along with the game. What began first as just simply triggering a few sounds for important events grew into full-blown ambient soundscapes, worthy of their own place in ambient music history. Amazingly, over 20 years, less than 10 individuals have put their direct artistic imprint onto the sound of EVE. In this session, I want to honor those that have been integral to shaping the soundscapes of EVE through conversations because I personally find their stories and insights to be inspiring. Let's bring on our first two guests, CCP Oldboy and CCP Kristian. So CCP Oldboy has been shaping the sounds of EVE for 15 years now. This is Oldboy.
Hello.
And he plays a huge part in giving soul to EVE. He's a generator of abyssal harmony, and he employs a lot of analog synthesis to create rich atmospheres, sound effects, and musical scores. CCP Kristian.
Hello.
Has been involved with EVE for about 10 years now. He is currently the main composer for EVEOnline and is a maestro of vertical supremacy. His compositions and sound design can be found in the tutorial, the Uprising release, Triglavian Space, and the upcoming Havoc release, just to name a few. These two here are the current and only sound designers for EVEOnline, and they produce an extraordinary amount of content for EVEOnline. Everything you hear in the game, produced by these two individuals. So, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Eric. Thank you so much.
First question is for CCP Oldboy. How did you first get involved with EVE?
So before I continue, I want to correct one thing.
Sure.
We do all the sound, but we have outside help from time to time, just to get another perspective, and also just
Good point.
We don't have time for everything all the time. But yeah, like 95% we do, so you're correct. So so that's 15 years ago, last May, I think, that I joined CCP.
Yeah, you just hit your 15-year anniversary.
Right. Yeah, so I had been, so my background is audio, music, and stuff like that. I've worked in the radio, recording, just general engineering for many years. And my education as well. And at the time I tried joining CCP was a time when I was not doing any of that. I was selling switches and routers and stuff like that. So I was like, I want to go back. And so I knew a couple of people at CCP at the time. I worked with them in the 90s, trying to do virtual reality things. So I just called them up, and they, at the time, they were actually they just happened to be considering putting more energy into audio. So it was good timing, I guess.
But then how did you actually get the gig? Did you give them like an album? Like, or is it just through?
I don't remember exactly how it was. I just got the job somehow. Just magically got it. I think
it's Iceland.
Yeah, they knew me, knew what I had done and things. So it was not like I didn't have to prove myself too much, I think. And so for some reason.
Who are your main influences then when it comes to music and sound design?
I think there are. I mean, I think there are, for people doing art and tech like this, a mixture, there's a lot of influence that they don't realize that they are influencing you, but just everyday things and people around you. But I can say that what comes to mind as far as games go, it'd probably be when I was playing Thief and Neverwinter Nights. And they don't have anything to do with sci-fi, I know that, kind of. Well, Neverwinter Nights does, a little bit. But it's just, they're so atmospheric, they're so good. So at least Thief, and yeah, I guess the other one as well. So yeah, I know they're very different from EVE, but it was an inspiration for some reason. And there's and maybe the biggest influence is movies, I think. I think most...
from what I know of you, that makes
and I think that for most game companies that are making games, they look at movies a lot, not just games. And for me, maybe, well, not maybe, definitely Blade Runner, the original '82 movie, and then Stalker, the Tarkovsky movie. These are the two ones, but I mean there are many more, and there are so many that are influencing you that you just don't realize it. Yeah.
I want to include CCP Kristian here now. You originally brought him on to work with Eve.
Yeah.
How did you two meet?
So we met at a conservatory here in Iceland. We were doing, I was doing my master's in music at an old age, and I met Kristian there. We had the same, professor, and we met there. This was in
13 or something like that. Is that right?
Yeah,
Is it earlier?
No,
it's 10.
no, 10. Yeah,
Yeah.
2010.
Shit.
Yeah, many years ago. Yeah. Yeah, we met then. So we started,
So you met him in conservatory, and then you guys, started talking about music? Like, how did this even...
There was something with... I was doing my final piece was being shown, and you were there. But I think
I was there, yes.
But I think we met before that because I think I contacted you because I was really interested in science fiction music,
Right.
and I was studying this, music from The Shining, Stanley Kubrick, and 2001: A Space Odyssey. This kind of music that is very static, and I was super interested in how is this, and how could this relate to an interactive music context. And I contacted Baldur at CCP because I heard of this, just a crazy guy I had to meet at CCP, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was great ideas, and at the same time, I was actually thinking about what would be the best solution for audio and especially music in a story, like in a story that hadn't happened yet, because we're in a sandbox and the story hasn't happened. What should the music be? And I had, I was really, I remember we had conversations about these things.
Yeah.
And then, Kristian, you did your PhD kind of about Eve, correct?
Yeah, I did it. I mean, I did a PhD which was about interactive music in a massively, what is it? Like an
Massively multiplayer online
MMO,
game.
yeah. And situated in outer space, it's in the future, and which is basically I was very much angled towards EVEOnline. I thought it was a super cool, kind of.
And it's like 400 pages. I've only read half of it.
What's it called? What's it called again? It's called Wormhole.
It's called a musical wormhole.
Musical wormhole.
And
Yeah.
if you were here last year, you covered a lot of the
Yeah, I went through
info on there, right?
the nerdy academic side of that whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and what instruments were you playing before you were like starting to do composition?
I came from rock music, really. I didn't like in high school. I was just rock music. That's that's the stuff, and some classical music as well. But I played the guitar and some drums and stuff like this. And then I just later got into synthesizers and all that electronic stuff you can do with that.
And I just want to point out, like, you guys, the way you work together, it's like an unspoken bond, and the music you make really complements the spaces you make, and vice versa. Why do you think? Where does that even come from? Do you talk about what you're going to do beforehand, or does it just flow?
I would say it flows. So it's like trying to explain art. It's so difficult. It's not possible to really explain it, I think. You can try, but it's difficult. So it's an understanding. It wouldn't matter what Kristian would do. It probably would work, but I can have I can tell him, but shouldn't it go this way instead of that way? He probably would agree because we always agree on, well, not always, but usually we agree on things.
Yeah.
So it's we have a nice understanding, and he is not afraid of telling me something that he doesn't like,
So you have to be really able to be honest.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's
Absolutely.
definitely. Yeah.
It's very important, I think.
I think we're going to move on to our next guest. So there have been, like I said earlier, there's been less than 10 individuals that have directly put their artistic imprint on EVEOnline. Of these individuals, there's only one person that has filled all three of these roles of sound designer, composer, and audio programmer. So I'd like to welcome to the stage CCP Realex, the original creator of the music in EVEOnline. Hello.
Hello.
Welcome. How does it feel to be here?
My umpteenth Fanfest.
Yes. With quite a break in between, though, obviously.
Yeah, it's been a while since I was here last.
So you were here from the beginning of EVEOnline, like from its inception, correct?
No, but the whole time it was in full production from the year 2000, yes, until 2017.
So you joined in 2000 then?
Yes, early 2000.
And what drew you to CCP in the olden times? Like, what drew you to CCP?
Nothing drew me to CCP. It was just a happenstance, like everything in my life.
So you feel like your life is a series of...
I have no control over anything that happens.
What was CCP like in 2000? What was it like to work for CCP back then?
I mean, it was basically just a family of young people.
How many employees were there, do you know?
I was employee number 20 or
You were number
21, maybe.
Wow.
So for the most of, like, between 2000 and then when we published the game in 2003, we were roughly from 30 from the most of the time, but we scaled up to like 50 towards the launch, if I remember correctly. Don't quote me.
We will quote you, don't worry about it. And so, how did you actually start working at CCP, though?
Okay, so I was just in school, you know, I was young, and I was just like, it's in Iceland it's called framhaldsskóli, what comes before university. So,
Yeah.
and I was doing this advanced programming course, and the teacher there is like, let's do like a trip. My son just founded a company. So we went and visited CCP, and they were just like giving us the tour, and they were like, oh yeah, in this room there's gonna be the sound guy. And I was like, oh yeah, who's your sound guy? He was like, we're currently looking for one. And then
You applied.
I applied.
Wow, that's awesome. And so you began making the music originally, or you were also doing the sound design?
So it went like a little bit like this. So I applied to do music, and you know, back in, for the people who are old enough to remember mp3.com, I had like a stuff there, and so I gave them my stuff there, and so they liked it, and they called me in for an interview, and then like in interview number 3, they were like pretty confident that I was going to get hired, and they're like, you do programming? I was like, yeah, I do programming. I did some light scripting as a kid, you know.
Yeah.
But in like the 286 in basic.
Right.
So I was very confident, and I was like, oh, you can do the sound effects as well. I was like, sure, I guess. But I couldn't really do either of those things.
Well, apparently you can. Well, I mean, there's a whole audience here that knows your music, so.
Yeah.
And
I was confident in the music part, but not maybe so much the programming part or
You
the
also
sound
did the
effects.
programming. I mean, it played in the game, didn't it?
Yeah.
Success.
I did all the original weapon sounds that everybody hated.
You did all the original web sounds, and everyone hated
Weapon
it?
sounds, yeah. The weapon sounds.
How did you know that people hated that at the time?
Have you heard of a thing called forums?
Yes, I have. We still have them. And what are your main? So you were focused mainly on music. What are your main musical influences then?
Like, I'm just a true kid of the 90s. It's like I fell in love with electronic music. I had like a religious experience when I got to like what, it's 13, 14. I went into like my first, what's it called, like a dance in school dance, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
And I went into this black room, and Prodigy's Charlie was playing, strobe lights, black lights, lasers, and I was like, oh shit, what's happening?
So it was Prodigy that got you into electronic music.
Definitely.
Wow. We've got a Prodigy fan in the audience. And back then, like when Eve first came out, what was the hardware like? Did you have to have an external sound card or?
Most definitely.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, so back in 2000, like I said, I was just a kid. I didn't know anything. But CCP, like Baldur was saying, there was another company the CCP was funded out of, was called Oz, which is like a studio that Baldur ran. And they got that guy to suggest what gear to buy, and they bought a lot of gear for me.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't like this gear, so I just bought in my own gear because I had been making music for like 7-8 years at that point. And
so speaking of gear, so we have the original synthesizer that he used to make Below the Asteroids. Well, it didn't. Yeah.
Definitely.
And Stellar Shadows and all your original.
All the original tracks were written on this silver thing over there.
And so you said that they bought you a bunch of gear, but you didn't like it. And
well,
you bought this?
I didn't know how to use it, you know. I was more comfortable with my own stuff. So I had like this really expensive, they bought this like a 90 sampler called an EMU, like Emax sampler, and it was like really the thing back in the, late 90s. But it was left on a shelf for like years.
And then you produced, how much of the music of EVEOnline is produced with this synthesizer?
In percentage?
Yeah.
So
roughly.
Yeah, I don't know, from Eve that came out in 2003, I think it was like 90% the synthesizer.
Really?
Yeah.
90%. Wow.
Yeah.
So that's what gives it that distinct sound.
Yeah. And I mean, it's not like today. This is considered like a piece of crap. This is a digital rumpler. This is like,
Well, I mean, you can see. So you produced tons of the music of EVEOnline just with this.
Yeah.
And then we have all the gear over here, which comes from both Oldboy and Kristian. So why is it so? I'm going to open this up to everyone. What's changed? Why is it so complex now? Why could you get away with using just the Triton in the past, and now you have to have all this?
Well, it's kind of weird, right? Because this is actually, in a way, some of it more old-fashioned than this.
Yeah.
So it just had like that analog stuff had a revival at some point because it sounds in a certain way, and yeah.
You just are the expectations higher, or like?
I think it's so today you have more of everything, not just this, but just more of everything. More channels to pick from on the TV, more food, more everything, more gear,
So
more options. It's also that, I think. I mean, it's also soft synths and stuff that you use in a computer are so good now that you could almost just skip all this. But it's not it's different, working with it. This is more hands-on, this old synth doesn't have as much hands-on as these do. So it's also that. And you change as an artist that you want to work with, the buttons and they're all on top of the synths instead of this. But we could probably make do with something like this, and if we had to. Definitely. Yeah.
And towards the end, I had, like when I quit CCP, I had I didn't use this one at all. I had my own, bunch of analog synthesizers.
Similar setup as we do now.
So, because you couldn't, they didn't make a lot of analog synthesizers back in the late 90s, early 2000s.
I didn't know that.
And they made them back in the 70s.
Yeah.
And then in the 80s and everything became digital with the DX7, and then and then it ended up with the Rumpler, which was like big for a while, like the workstation type.
Yeah.
But then everything has gone back to the. But what I was always doing, you were always emulating analog synthesizers with the digital synthesizers.
Right. Actually, this would be a perfect opportunity. You've prepared a little bit of a demo, or could you demo the Triton a little bit for us?
Yeah. I could probably play something that somebody remembers.
You want to turn it around? You want to go sideways?
Yeah, there's seats down. Okay, there's only one seat. Never mind.
Anybody? No? Okay. Just a bunch of the tracks was written with this. And yeah.
And you said that there was a certain key that you used, right?
Yeah, I wrote, as you see, I'm not classically trained like these two guys. I don't have any formal training. So I just learned one chord, it's C minor, and I just did all the Eve music in C minor. I mean, it's fine chord. Got pretty far with it.
Well, obviously.
Yep, so many stuff.
Do you have the Stellar Shadows sound?
Somewhere. There are hundreds of sounds here.
So Stellar Shadows, that's the very first track that was ever...
First login track, right?
First login track,
yeah.
yeah.
It's called something res.
And so this has all the presets that you still used back then.
Well, I actually had this dogma rule. I would never use presets.
Oh.
I always created all the sounds from scratch. The first thing I did when I bought the synthesizer, I made a init sound, initialization sound. It was just like a square wave, no saw wave with nothing else. So handmade, handcrafted with love.
Wait, so you would just have to reprogram that every time?
Yeah. And I mean, I spent days just making sounds, like no music, just, this is a nice patch, safe, go home, you know.
Wow.
That's how you make
I wouldn't
music.
do that. I'm lazy, man.
Yeah. And then we have this one. I think this is the Stellar Shadows one.
Yeah, there we go. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That was really fun to hear. So I'm going to switch it up a little bit right now. And we're going to play a little game of...
Name. That. Cell.
Can't look at the screen now. So I'm going to play a few sounds from like a long time ago. I went pillaging through our old Wise projects and found some old sounds that I think might be iconic. And I want to see if any of you recognize them. And if they don't, then we'll open it up. Here's the first one.
I definitely know what this is.
You do?
I definitely don't.
This was when you deleted a character.
Nope.
What?
Unless it also was there.
Pretty sure.
I would trust you more than me on that one. I found it under the name Capsule Destroy. So I found a bunch of entries on the forum where everyone is asking for crunchy sound back. So I thought it was this one. I don't know. Maybe you guys, do you recognize this? Anyone?
It's Podkill.
Podkill, that's it. But you also use it for delete, huh?
No. I'm probably mistaken.
One for the audience.
Yes.
What about this one?
Yeah, it's one of the hangers, the Amar hanger, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, they had some.
You are correct.
When I joined, they had some like Catholic kind of thing.
Gregorian chants.
Gregorian chants, and it was really, it was an Amar. But was it like this? I think I have heard this before.
Yeah,
it was like
it
this.
was
What
like
I
this.
found.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When was this? Like, when is this thing?
2009 is what I found. And yeah, I could tell it's.
Yeah, this is old from 2003 release.
Oh, it goes that far back. Okay. Let's do one more. Let's see here. PTSD for anyone? Should we do it over and over? So it's.
You can do it many times for you. You know you like it.
So explain. What is this?
This is the famous gong.
What? How many in this audience actually remember this sound and remember this? There's
No
only,
one?
There's only one?
It's only 1, 2, 3. Goki remembers. Goki came into my office and he was really, Baldur, sort of, there's a sound people don't seem to like. And I totally agreed with him. But the thing is, though, that the graphics that went with it, I mean, I just thought the sound was a good fit for the graphic. But it just to show that how difficult it is to. You can't escape the sound. You just always hear it. You can't close your eyes. So it's so difficult to ignore. You know, you can ignore the graphics a little bit. It's just a tiny dot on the screen. But it is different with the sound. So yeah, it's a terrible sound to hear like 10 times in 10 seconds.
Yeah, so for those who don't know, this is kind of like the red dot debacle, but for audio. And this used to play every time that you would kill a ship, but sometimes you would kill a lot. So it would just be like ding, ding,
Yeah, if you
ding,
had
ding, ding.
like rats lined up and you killed like 10 in 10 seconds, it's a lot to take in. So
Thanks for
that's
playing.
a gong. It's a gong. Yeah.
Thanks for playing Name That Sound. We're gonna end the talk show before the musical number with a smarty pants kind of question. We're gonna go deep. So Brian Eno, which he's a seminal ambient and electronic composer. He wrote in the liner notes of his album Ambient 1, Music for Airports, that's the name of the album. He wrote that he composed his ambient music to accommodate, quote, accommodate many levels of listening attention without enforcing one in particular. It must be as ignorable as it is interesting, end quote. Do you feel like this is an ethos that pervades the sound design and music of Eve, and if so, how?
In the beginning, especially for me, I would say that I intentionally tried to make music that nobody would notice. So, like, I would avoid using frequencies that are close to what is called the human voice range, because it would grab your attention. If you think there's something is a voice, or like a human voice, or like a child's cry, people would gravitate towards it, like, oh, what's happening? But if you like, if even just EQ the frequencies just out of your sounds.
Yeah. Wow.
So my goal was just to support the experience.
Right.
Because it was like, in my mind at least, it was like this very, at the beginning at least, a dark, lonely place, not a lot of people, and so I wanted to emphasize it with the music, without like drawing the player's attention to like, I'm listening to music.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So you did try and make it as memorable
absolutely.
as it is interesting, and
Yeah, and I think I agree. I don't think in the same way maybe Adjón describes, but I definitely I act in the same way. And then Kristian, I believe, as well. We're not trying to. We're trying not to draw attention to the music.
so what methods do you use? Like he's trying to stay away from those human frequencies. Are there methods that you use to try and achieve this?
Yeah. It's very much up the same kind of the same thoughts in a way, to try and stay in the background and support what's happening, and then I'm doing it a lot of time for Eve by kind of vacuum cleaning out a lot of the musical structures that will take your attention. So try and not have too obvious beats always, unless you want some kind of forward movement feeling. But for me, I was also trying to, I was very interested in sort of the infinite space, the setting of the game, and try and give that some voice in the game.
So
And,
I think this is a good time to point out that the musical styles of both of you are ambient, technically, but quite different.
Yeah.
Which
kind of, yeah.
How would you explain your style?
Naive pop.
Naive pop.
Compared to the musical geniuses, yes.
And then so now it's expanding. So we have naive pop. That's your. I'm not saying that. That's your quote. And then so where is Eve going to now musically?
We've been talking about hip hop a lot.
Oh yeah.
I always wanted to rap. I always wanted to rap.
Yeah, it's because Baldur wants to rap.
And he also wants to play bass as well.
Yeah, I want to play bass and say yeah. You know,
So you heard it here first. Next track, next login track is gonna be hip hop. Don't worry about it.
Well, we want to make it more and more interactive, for sure. So, yeah, that's one thing that we're working on, trying to get it to react more and more to gameplay.
Yeah, and help the player feel what's out there, what's out there in the darkness. Grab him even more, you know.
So you want to attract more to the game.
Yeah, you know, I mean, we don't want to attract, you know, too much attention to the music, but we want to use the music to help make the game a better game, you know.
Right.
So that's just the goal.
I think that's all we have time for. Do you have something else you'd like to
Yeah,
say?
I just wanted to add on top of that, like, that wasn't a possibility back in 2000. You know, we just had pre-recorded tracks.
Right.
But so much fun things can be done now.
Well, and there's definitely preference for this. I mean, a lot of our old players really like your tracks, and they want to continue to listen to those on top of Eve, and a lot of players also use just what's there, which would be your tracks, and yours as well. I just want to thank you so much, CCP Relax, for coming here. It was really, really awesome. I'm incredibly honored to continue working on what you started, and let's give it up for him. And now we'll have the musical act, the musical portion of this, which will be done by well, us. So enjoy. Thank you for coming.